Good afternoon, everyone. We're coming to you live from address here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Before we get started and we get some people in here, I thought I'd just remind you about the Helen Meet taking place in Helen, Georgia, June 6th through 8th, 2025. Come out and join us. It's one of the largest Porsche 944 meets in the Southeast. Today, we're just going to be taking your questions and looking at some of the projects we're working on around here. And hopefully you guys can tell me about what you're working on. Got a few people here. Hope everybody's having a great Sunday so far. Just trying to stay on top of some of the things that we got going on here. We just got this wiring harness out of this door. So we're swapping a door on a car that we're painting. It's rusted out pretty badly, so just taking everything off of it. And then we're gonna paint it to match inside, and then we'll put it on the car. And then we'll send the car to paint. But as for now, this isn't a doors off paint job. We are doing one of those at the moment, but this is not one of those. So we're just gonna make it match. So if you open the door and see the seals and stuff, it still looks pretty good down in there. So what's everybody working on today? We got 8 people here. Let me know what you'd like to see, or if you have any questions. This car here originally had power locks, but it looks like someone removed them, so he's going to take the power locks from this door, since the car that we're putting the donor door on already has them. Mark says hello and thank you for your time. Dennis says he's doing a clutch and torque tube replacement. Awesome. Daniel says, I'm from Spain. Went by pretty quick. Let's see if I can find that comment. Oh, it says it's deleted, I guess. Dennis says it's not fun to replace the torque. Yeah, definitely not. So we actually got a brand new torque tube right there behind us that we're going to be putting in. The only thing left to do is clean up the heat shields. We'll get those cleaned up. We also have the new foam going in. Don't forget your foam pad while you got your torque tube out. Okay, here's the comment again. Daniel says, hi, I'm a fan from Spain. I learned a lot from your videos. My question is, or was about, the wires that goes to the CPU to the engine injectors and sensors. Are they compatible with 944s of different years? So no, they're not. So if you have a 944S or an S2, I believe those injectors are the same. If you have a turbo, those are the only injectors you can use. Is green top turbo injectors. Even though the S and the S2s have green tops, they're not the same. And even the early and late injectors, so if you have an 82, being in Europe, to an 85-1, those injectors are, I believe, higher impedance. And then you have the I might have that backwards, but the 85-1s to, well, 85-2 to 87, I believe, or 88s, those are all the same. So I don't know if the 89 2.7s, I don't get a lot of those in here. There's not many of them built. If they use the same injectors, I would think that they would, but so the later injectors are different. So if you have a early car, you need those injectors. And so those are gonna be 201s, and 158s will be the lates. And then of course there's different numbers for the S, S2s, and turbos. Kenneth says, Good morning. Well, good morning to you. Mark says, I am having trouble with my idle on a 944 turbo. It sits about 1100 RPMs, goes higher when warm. I can't figure it out. Replace the ISV, MAF, DME temp sensor, verify TPS, and adjusted. Interesting. So we see a lot of that. Has your airflow meter ever been opened up? Would be my first question. If you see silicone around it, then somebody could have been in there goofing with some stuff. And if your little bung that goes on top of it is missing, then there's a good sign that there's something going on in there. So it's not uncommon for, as the engines warm up, that the idle gets higher. The ISV should control it to some degree. It's a little odd if you've paid attention on modern cars. Usually when you first start up like a modern car, for instance, you'll see the idle is much higher and then it goes lower as it warms up. And that's not what really they did on these cars, but you'll see that a lot. Kind of want to get it to at least, 950 plus or minus 50 RPM. So maybe if you've tested everything, it may be with the airflow meter. Didier says, hi Brent, 924S, aluminum trailing arms, wheel bearing replacement. Do you need to heat the arm to extract the bearing? So I'm heated it a few times, but there's not really any need. I've actually just done some. I've stuck them in the freezer. I put the bearings in the freezer before and done all this stuff. But if you have a good kit, you don't really have to do it. We use the Harbor Freight. It's the front wheel drive, but it works on the rear trailing arms just fine. But it's called the Harbor Freight front wheel drive wheel bearing kit. And that's how we remove and install those. We actually just did a set this week on the 924S with aluminum trailing arms. I stuck the bearings in the freezer. It makes it a little bit easier, but that's when they're going in. Taking them out, never really needed any heat. There is a circlip back here. Once you get that out, then the bearing goes out that way. Comes out from the back. What is a good website for a distributor in Europe or America to find all kinds of parts? That is a very good question. So I try not to order too much stuff from Europe. Every now and then I do. But someone below said Rock Auto isn't bad. Yeah, I use Pelican parts a lot of times. They probably got the largest selection of stuff. But a little secret is if you have a dealer nearby, you can probably buy the same stuff for a little less. Because when you order on some of these websites, I'm not saying in particular, I'm just saying some of these websites, what they'll do is they'll just go to the dealership and buy it and then send it to you. And at the old shop I was about 45 minutes away from a dealership, and now I'm 5 minutes away from a dealership. But so now I can actually go and just pick up the parts without having that added on top. But we also use WorldPack here, so things are delivered to us. It's not something that anybody else can typically use. You got to own a shop to be a WorldPack member, and it's not outside the US. But yeah, so for me, we use WorldPack. But secondary option would be Pelican parts. Dennis asks, is the guide pin on the speed and reference sensor necessary since a bolt passes through it anyway? Would it be easier to remove and install the bell housing without it? I think I've never taken it off, but that's a good question. I do believe you want to keep that guide pin because the bolt will pass through it, but it's going to be sloppy, and then it may make the whole bracket sloppy without it. Because that where the pin's at, the whole bracket kind of pivots on it. And if you remove that, then it's just going to get kind of wild. You won't have a way of keeping it from sliding back and forth on that. So I would definitely keep that. It's not fun, but I also don't recommend notching out the cylinders, the bell housing there for that. 777 says hello. Well, hello to you. So yeah, keep these questions going. So I'll just show you what we're working on. I showed you the new torque tube. I showed you, we took these trailing arms off the 924S here. We put new bushings in here. We got new bushings in the torque tube. Well, the rear carrier back here, and the hubs look like brand new now. We've even got the stub axles looking like brand new. So every detail is going into this car here. Takes a little bit of time. Sway bar has been refinished. So Project 944 asks, what type of pen tool do you recommend to properly remove the side mirrors? Very good question. We just removed the side mirrors today on a car. I've done about 5 this week. Let's see if I can find it. This is an AMP. It's an AMP tool. I forget where I ordered it at. It might have been on their website. I think it's a 30, AMP 30. That's the size of the Molex connector pins down in there. And it's got a 305183 on the back there. But it's a plunger style, and you can pop those puppies out in just a second. So this is the tool I recommend. The only tool I recommend. It costs about 30 bucks, but it's the only thing that really works. I've gotten a bunch of these off eBay and Amazon. They do not work. They're a waste of time. They're flimsy. Buy that tool. It's 30 bucks. The only tool you ever need again. So when we took that out earlier, I'll show you the, let's see, our mirror wires right there, still intact. Pop them out in about a second. You don't have to worry about those.
Just leave those in there?
Yeah, we'll do something with those in a little bit. So he's taking this door apart here. Don says I agree about this. They're completely worthless. The first time you go to pop something out, you might get 2 or 3 of them, but they're just gonna break. And I've broken so many of those things. Yeah, you can take that out. But yeah, I'd leave that on there, and I think you're done. Have you mask up some stuff. You can take that rubber seal out there, and then that's it. Is it pretty simple to replace the drive shaft axles on a 944 turbo? Yes. They just unbolt. They're torqued to about 30 foot-pounds and come right out. And if you have the cooler loop, it's not as easy as the ones without the cooler loop, but it can be done. The ones with the cooler loop, the cooler likes to get in the way, but you just have to work it around in there. You might actually find that you might need to drop down the transmission a little bit on one side. There's one bolt in the top of the crossover up there. You can just drop it down if it gets in the way, but we have had to battle that a few times, but If it's 87, and not all, and there are some 87s that even have the cooler loop, but but if it doesn't have the cooler loop, you'll have no problem whatsoever. Just be sure to always, I've seen a lot of axles fall off. You got to go around in the star, you got to go in a star pattern and tighten them down, and don't tighten them to like the full 30 foot-pounds at first. Just go around maybe like 10 foot-pounds in a star pattern, and you got to do it again. You inch it up to like 20 foot-pounds. And if you feel like they're starting to strip at 20 foot-pounds, you know, leave it at that, and then go around each bolt and just torque them around in the circle. So once you do the star pattern twice, just kind of ratcheting up the torque each time, go back around at your 30 foot-pounds, or it might be 32, but then you go in a circle around there. And that's going to pull everything on there evenly, and then you'll be able to torque everything down. You're never going to have a problem with the axle coming off. Jeff says, good afternoon, Brent. Jeff from Clover SC. I stopped by your old shop a few years ago. 84 gray Gemini sunroof delete car. Getting ready to do timing belt and water pump. Belt brand preferences. Oh yeah, I remember you. How you been? It was great meeting you. So as far as preferences, I don't really have any. A lot of times we just go with whatever gets here first or we have in stock. A lot of people prefer the Gates belts. Now when it comes to the balance shaft belt, I do recommend the, I want to say Continental's gone to the louder belts. So I've been trying to stick with the Gates belts for the balance shaft belt. But yeah, no preference. You know, sometimes on some weeks it's like grocery shopping, you know, Pepsi's on sale, Coke's on sale, you know. I don't really have a problem or an issue with any one of those. People do have their preferences for belts, and we'll put on whatever they want, but we switch back and forth between the Gates and the Continental. But Continental used to make a really good balance shaft belt. It was about 80 bucks, but they went to the belts that just make a loud racket. They just make that supercharged sound. So we've stopped buying those and going with the Gates. Technically the Continental is supposed to be a better belt in that regard. It's a better material, lasts longer, but a lot of people don't want to deal with that loud noise. Don says, I'm waiting for the rings for my spec pistons and then do a reassemble. Awesome. Yeah, you have to send me some pictures. Project 944 says, is there a reliable source for full interior carpet sets that fit? I've seen them listed around $700, which seems like a lot. It's a lot to risk for low quality and poor fit. So there is a company that makes, so the first thing you want to do, I'll back up a little bit. The first thing you want to do is get a molded carpet set, because if you put a flat carpet set in these cars, it's just the worst thing you'd ever do. The reason why that is there's a lot of cutting and trimming, and it likes to wad up. And so there is a company that makes a molded carpet set, but when you got it, somebody's out there flying down the road. It was actually just a flat carpet set that had been cut and then sewn, so it fit fine, but it's not truly molded, if that makes any sense. The factory carpets were actually molded and everything's nice and smooth. You can see seams in this, and so I don't know who's making one that's a true molded set. And personally, I would just go to Parts Breaker, find a clean carpet. That's typically what I do. Find a good clean carpet, that's in good shape out of a wrecked car and call it a day, unfortunately. And you could probably get a whole set. It may be hard to track down, but you can probably get a whole set for a couple of $100. And it'd be much better quality than what you'd get out of a lot of these. There may be someone out there that actually makes a true molded set, but I haven't seen it. So this is an 84 that we're working on here. I posted some pictures on Facebook the other day, and this thing was a real mess. But you can see we got it cleaned up pretty nice. We're not going to be pulling this engine and doing anything fancy with it. We're just cleaning it up, putting some new motor mounts on. We're going to be rebuilding the head, installing that, and then we're going to put the red cam tower and kit on there. I think that comes from Plyhammer's Porsche. That's what the owner wanted to go with. And new hoses and stuff. The engine seems to be in pretty good shape, other than it was burning a little bit of oil, and it seemed to be coming from the valve seals. So all that's going to be replaced. New coolant. It had mud in the coolant system, so we'll get that cleaned out. Carl is asking about a 2003 Boxster. Sorry, we don't work on Boxsters. Got a few guys that work here that own them, but we don't specialize in them, unfortunately. So he's almost done with this door. So now that this door is stripped down, we're going to be painting it burgundy. And it's going on the burgundy turbo out here. We already did one door. The reason why we're replacing that door is it's just corroded out. Water got in behind the Bondo on it, and it's going to take a lot more work to try and fix that door than it would be to replace that door. So we'd rather put something in there with fresh metal, and then we can't guarantee the work on it either because it's so damaged. So might as well do it once and do it right.
Yeah. Should I get the door handle off it or leave that?
Yeah, if you want to. Do you know how to remove it?
No.
There's some pins in there. I'll show you.
Okay.
You can do it as you go along, and I'll guide you through it. John says, good afternoon. I took your advice and started to rebuild my throttle body. Spent more time trying to source 2 flap screws. Oh yeah. I used to be a guy, Arnworks. He used to sell all that stuff, but I heard he got bought out or he stopped doing it. I'm not sure what happened with that, but I've thought about trying to do stuff like that. Not necessarily the throttle body seals, but come up with some stuff around here that we could sell to people, maybe along the lines of the tensioning tools and stuff. So he's getting ready to get this door handle off. So you don't have to remove that plate. Okay. You just remove the screw, and then once that screw comes out, you wiggle it. The screw on the side of the door there.
Yeah.
And then there'll be a pin, and we'll take the pin out, and it should just pop out in your hand. We're gonna hope. We might actually take the whole mechanism off. So we paint the doors without any of the hardware on there, including the door handles. It's just an easy failure point. If you don't paint behind the door handles, then the paint will start to fail there. So we don't want that. So yeah, wiggle it out. It won't come out a whole lot, but that is we'll worry about that later. I tell you what, go ahead and start unwrapping that torch too. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that later. Okay. see. Looks like Amazon has that AMP 351 extraction tool for $20.40. Oh, awesome. Good. That's a good price. Yeah, I think I bought mine on the web. It's been a few years since I bought them, but I've had to buy 2 of them. But they're good to have around. Not because I broke it, I just lose stuff. I've got like 5 flywheel locks around here somewhere. And I only know where one is. Like, where does it go? I don't know. It's here somewhere. But we're gonna get this torque tube unwrapped now. I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad idea. I want to get it in, but I'll tell you what. Before I need to put that in, I got to get this cleaned up. Let's I guess just sand that and we'll paint.
Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna clean this huge shield up. You can use any one of these buckets. You can even take my bucket if you want to. So I've been restoring a sunroof this morning, trying to get that cleaned up. So I had a leaky sunroof. This is the way it came. It was even dirtier than this when I got it. It had tree sap and everything all over it, but you can see it's in poor condition, and this is the way it's looking now. So the edges are perfect on it. It still has the original paint on it, so it should match the paint on the car without having to get too fussy with it and respray it. So should work out perfect. Hoping so anyway. The other sunroof is just cracked up and leaking. Get that fixed and I'll be a little bit happier. What is the secret to installing those black aluminum trim pieces on the door window molding? Yeah, the aluminum's not too hard to install. When you go to take them off, you'll notice that the tabs break. And if you're buying new ones, you don't even have to buy new ones. You can reuse them, but you just got to be careful when you take them off that you don't break the little tabs for them. But putting those back on, typically, it's like right here. There's no real secret to it. It just takes time and patience. Don't bend them out of whack. But there's a few tabs in there behind there. You just have to make sure they're flipped up like that. You just straighten them out a little bit, and they do want to break, and then you just take them out and don't bend it as you're pulling on it. And I've never really had any trouble with them, but the things I have trouble with, and what I thought your question was going to be about, is these door seals here. These things, hopefully you guys can see it right there. These are a nightmare. So when you buy new ones, they're not cut. So you have to cut them and you have to fit them in there, and they've got to go in those clips. And if you've got the door all apart like this, it's not a big deal to get them back in there, but getting them cut right and getting them seated back in there is not a lot of fun. Oh, you're talking about this piece. So this just pops off. You're talking about that one there, right? I thought you were asking about this whole thing, but this piece here just pops off and it's just held on by tension, basically. So if yours aren't hanging on anymore, they just barely hold on. If they're not holding on, just go to Elliot or somebody and just get some different ones. They might be just kind of out of spec. Yeah, they should be easy to pop back on and off. I'll take a pick and remove one, and you'll see you can just pop it back on usually. Grab a pick. Yeah, yours is probably just warped or something. Let's see if I can do this. guys see? So you just take this here. They're just barely wrapped around the other aluminum piece there. You just kind of clip around it. This one's on there good. Usually you can just pop these right off. I'm gonna end up warping it, but you can see, yeah. Just get up underneath it real good. Yeah. If you do it right, if you pull too hard, like if I twist that now, it's not gonna clip back on there, right? So I gotta just let it go. There you go, you can see it's nothing to it. Pull all the dirt out, and then this one I'm just gonna slide it just a little bit back up underneath there. Yep. Well, just clip it back on. There you go. So if it's in good spec, you can see it just clips back on there, and it's going to be very hard to get it back off there again. But boom. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Let's see. Go back up. Ordered the inside door seals from 944 online and was disappointed that one set for the passenger side was gray instead of black. We encountered that issue. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's the way they come out of the mold. Might be able to wipe those down, but I think the genuine ones are like that. You'll even see some of these here like that when they get old, or if they're fresh out of the mold. Oh, he said he tried it. Interesting. Yeah, I've seen the gray ones. Oh, I have seen them just gray. Now, sometimes I've seen them where it's just like a powdery stuff on there, and I thought that was what you're talking about. Yeah, I've seen the gray ones. That's weird. Yeah, I didn't know that that was the OEM ones. John asked, can you please describe the carbon canister system? Yeah, I'll do my best. So, all right, this is going to be an early car, but it's kind of the same on all 944s. And this isn't like the best example. Let me see if I can go over. I got to have a car here. This one's like this and even more stuff. You can't see anything on that one. Okay, we'll go back to this car. Okay, so on an early car, you should be able to see the charcoal canister here. So we got a charcoal canister. Can you guys see? I'll flip the camera around so I'm not having to do that. All right, so up in there is your charcoal canister. It's the same. Early, late cars. The later cars are going to have a fender liner in there where you can't see it, but you get the idea. It's behind that fender liner on the late car. So the hose off top of it, and there's another hose that goes to atmosphere there once everything is filtered out through the charcoal canister. And then you got a hose that tees here, and this one comes from the fuel tank. So basically you've got one that comes off the top of your fuel tank that runs over here, and that's why you don't have a vented gas cap. All the venting that's needed from the fuel tank as the fuel expands and contracts and evaporates and whatnot, it gets into the carbon canister, and you see it goes straight across here. But you can also see that there's a system here, and this one's not exactly hooked up right. That's why I didn't want to use this one as a reference, but you can see everything here. So this tees off here, and I believe when you first start the car up, you have a vacuum And that vacuum running here is going to go to your throttle plate, and it's only open when the throttle plate is, I believe it's open. So then it's going to start drawing it. It's going to try and start, it's going to tell this to start drawing stuff in, but you've also got a temp switch over here. So once it reaches a certain temperature, it won't do it until the car's, I believe, warmed up a little bit. So it only wants to start drawing from the vacuums the excess pressure out of the tank when the car is up to temp and the throttle's open, so you're driving. So that's pretty much it. It's my best understanding of it, but yeah. So if you want to delete all this, then you'd have to put a vented gas cap on there, and you'd have to plug this off. I see people do it, but then you get fuel smell, and I don't really advise it, because nobody wants their car smelling like that all the time. So we keep on all the cars that we have here. Don't want those fuel smells, and then we just try and make sure it works right. So there you go. Quick overview of the charcoal canister system. Pretty simple. Kenneth says, anyone bought the from AliExpress in China turbo expansion kit tank for 110 bucks? I have seen those, but I'm waiting to see if anybody else has got one. Has anyone got it yet? Because I want to know the quality of it. I mean, surely before COVID, those probably shouldn't even say that on YouTube, but before 2020, we couldn't even, you could buy those turbo expansion tanks for like 200 bucks and maybe 130 bucks for a naturally aspirated one. And then suddenly after that, they're 700 bucks and 500 bucks for an NA. So I would think that the quality is probably about on par. It's just that, you know, they're maybe making them again. I'm hoping that that's the case. Jeffrey asked, do you prefer Coney Sports or Bilstein shocks for spirited street use? New springs used with original with 100,000 miles. So the Bilsteins, you can't even get the front ones anymore. So it's been a long time since I've been in a car where they actually had Bilsteins all the way around. So for the time being, everything that we've installed is all Coney. And typically, if we do that, we'll put shocks in there with the same springs if they're not sagging. But on a lot of cars, we do replace the springs. So depends on what the customer wants. As long as the springs are in good shape, 100,000 miles is not too bad for a spring. Of course, that's way too much for a shock. But my understanding is that a lot of people preferred the Bilstein, but you can still buy the rears, but I don't think you can buy the front. So if I'm not going to make things match, then I'm not going to install them. I want everything to be all around the matching pair. John says, yeah, that explains why it smells like fuel underneath. Yeah, probably, yeah. Make sure that your little plastic line that runs to it, you can see that this one's got an aftermarket hose on there. But just make sure your plastic line is intact from the fuel tank to the charcoal canister. You get rid of a lot of smells. $2112 Dino asked, how often do you work on 928s? Every now and then. We've had a few of them. I don't get a lot of them in here. I typically turn them away unless we're really slow, which I haven't been for a few years now. Don't mind working on them, but a lot of times, you know, the last time someone called me with a 928, they told me that their transaxle was leaking fluid, and you got to remove, unlike the 944s, you have to pretty much remove the entire rear end suspension and all to get in there and do that. And excuse me, pretty much at that point, if I've got to do that, then you got to drive it to see if it's going to still leak. So it's not worth it to me. In that case, I'm going to farm that out to a 928 specialist shop to rebuild that transmission and make sure that I got a warranty with it before I put that back in there. Because if I put that transmission in there, fill it up, and I put all that suspension back in there and I drive it around and it leaks, that's not going to be on me. So we do get them sometimes. We've got some manual ones before. They're pretty interesting. Never really went anywhere with that. We had a 83 in here, and honestly, I'm kind of like this with the 924s as well. If it has the mechanical CIS fuel injection, you're probably going to need to pay a lot up front for it to be looked at. With the 944s and the EFI, it's, you know, it's whatever, you know, injectors work, your coil works, and the computer works, and the thing drives. You ain't got to worry about it. But when you get into that warm-up regulators and fuel distributors and fuel accumulators and stuff, I have a guy that's buying a 944 project, and he's wanting us to restore it, and I'm more than happy to do that. But he's first looking at a 924 on the side of the road. It's like, you're gonna have more money in just getting the fuel system operational than buying a 944. So what model Tony do you recommend for the NA normal use? If we're going Coney, we're gonna go fully adjustables. So we put those on the front and rear. I got a set right here. So if you're gonna go all out, you might as well go all out. But Coney does make, I think, a cheaper shock and strut that isn't adjustable that will fit the bill. I don't know what they're called right off, but I believe they have the black caps instead of the yellow caps. So we'll definitely. There's this Coney here, and I believe the cheaper one has the plastic black cap here. I think we got these from Pelican Parts. So I had a few questions or a few comments come up on my 928 video this week. So I don't know if like some forum somewhere just happened to find that video after 5 years and shared it and thought it was interesting because suddenly it got a huge spike in popularity for whatever reason. And there was a few comments popping up on it. So if that was one of you guys, I appreciate that. It was a lot of fun to make that video. But yeah, I don't see a lot of them, but I did I'm looking for I was going to show you 928 guys something if you are hanging around here. I don't know what happened to it. It's usually sitting here. So I had a factory trained Porsche specialist guy years ago gave me a book on 928s, and it had a bunch of notes in it from when he was working on the cars and just different things that he would write down in it and put different tabs in. But it was I see it now, very interesting book. But not only that, it was pretty much all the workshop manuals put together. This is engine suspension. Oh, it's even got 911 gearbox and 3.2 911. So this is a bunch of different workshop manuals thrown together. He worked on 911s as well. Someone was asking me, where did I get that really nice workshop manual to get the wiring diagrams, and this isn't it. I have the 928, some of the 928 manuals, not all of them, but a lot of this is also the same for a 944. Of course, they have things that we don't have, and vice versa. But looking at a picture, you wouldn't really tell that that's a 928 instead of a 944 till you get to the central electric panel. So, turn this around again and read the comments. Do you have a good source for manual black Hirschman antenna rod? All I can seem to find is the chrome. Years ago, I used to see them pop up. I've not really paid attention to them in a while. A lot of times, most of these guys, they're moving on to the power. So I don't know that they even make a black power antenna. So if you want to stay with the black, I think they were all chrome even back in the day. But it's not too hard to convert over to a power. I know a lot of people don't want to go that route, but a lot of times now people have XM satellite radio where they're streaming on their phone, so they don't even want the antenna on their early cars. So I'm not sure. I used to see them pop up every now and then. I've installed a few of the black ones, but it's been a few years. It's probably been, oh man, 2017 the last time someone asked me to install one of those. Then it says, I just put a new rear main seal on dry after lightly sanding the crank and wiping it dry. Should I buy a new one and install lightly oiled? I haven't put, just put some oil in there. Should be all right. You want it lubricated before you start the engine. Just try and squeeze a little bit of oil up in there. It should be okay. And also, when you squeeze that oil in there and you start the car up, don't be surprised if it still looks like the rear main seal is leaking. We use, I've started using assembly lube on pretty much all the seals that we install. I find that it lasts a little bit longer, especially if it's going to be a while before the engine starts. Assembly lube will protect the seals a lot better. I've noticed that if I just use oil, then several years later, those cars are coming back in. When we do the belts and stuff, they need new seals again. But to put assembly lube on there, those seals last a lot longer. But yeah, oil should be just fine, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. As long as it's in there, but once it starts up and it has a little pressure, it's going to be lubricated anyway, but it's always a good idea to lube them. Not a bad idea at all. If you feel that you want to put some assembly lube on there and then just go ahead and replace that seal, then I wouldn't blame you for that either, but it's probably not too much to worry about there. Yeah, no problem, man. So I'm trying to come up with some fun stuff for you guys. Let's see. So he's over here. He's cleaning up this heat shield. It's looking good. I ended up getting a lot more of these. I had to go down to 944 barn on Friday. So if you guys haven't seen 944 barn, then you should definitely check out my Patreon over there. I did a very quick video. I was on the road that whole day. I'd left early in the morning and I got down there around noon. And then spent the whole day just picking up parts. I had to go down and get a torque tube on the other side of Atlanta. But he's got some really cool cars out there. And let's see, I got some new trim panels for a car we're working on. Some new wiper blades. It's gotta be more stuff. There's something I was gonna show you guys. I may have taken it in. But, the rear cone you showed earlier, can you show? They just twist. You just twist them around. So I think the black ones do similar stuff. But I believe it. I'm not really sure which one's the cheaper. I want to say the ones with the plastic caps are the cheaper ones, but I think they're adjustable as well. But I want to say Coney also makes a set that doesn't adjust. So, but yeah, it doesn't. I'd have to, let me open the other one and see. It should have a manual in here or something. It's usually the thing we do when we go to put them on the car. Yep. All right, here we go. Let's see something. So that's it. Better than the description. Just let you see the instructions. Oh, thought it fell out of the box for a minute. Trying to put it back in one-handed. Okay, I'm just going to stop that because it's just making a lot of noise and I'm going to end up breaking something. Hey Casey, how's it going? Did you ever get your car running right? You get your computer back? So this is the guy in Hawaii that has been on here the past couple of weeks. He's trying to fix his car. So he went to fix a balance shaft oil leak, and the car didn't want to run right after that. And I've been going through it with him a little bit here and there. He's replaced replaced pretty much everything, but I think the only thing that we haven't dived into is the wiring itself. Nate says, I finally made it to a live, and I have a question. Do you have an injector recommendations? Mine are clogged, and I'm debating trying to clean them or paying someone. Yeah. We use RC injector in Torrance, California. Casey says, that's a negative. DME is back and still runs poorly. Yeah. I guess it's time to dive into the wiring, man. That's all I can think of. Is, I don't know what would have been messed with down there at the lower balance shaft that could have got. There's nothing down there. It's an 86, so you don't have the oil level sender. You just have the oil pressure sender. And could be reference sensors, but at this point, I would just check the continuity on everything. Yeah, I'd replace the speed and reference sensor. Well, test them. I wouldn't just put the parts cannon up to it, but I would. I think you've already thrown the parts cannon. But it could be just the simplest thing. It could just be a wiring issue. Yeah, if you're, it's not too bad on these cars. I mean, you only got 5-6 wires you need to check. So there could just be something corroded. You had the injectors checked, so I would just get a multimeter and go through it and see what you got going on with it. See if anything's just. Somebody on Facebook this morning I was reading about, and they said that their car would not start cold, and you don't have this issue, but a lot of times when your car won't start cold, it's because the wires behind this boot right here on the DME plug, they've corroded out and the insulation's gone and they're shorting out. So if you happen to be watching this, then check behind that boot. Because if you can start the car on starting fluid and it runs fine once it's warmed up and you go to restart it, then you're probably looking at fixing the wires behind that. As for you, Casey, you just need to, here, I'll show you. I'll grab my multimeter here and we'll go through this. All right, where's the wiring harness for the injectors? Where did that go? Oh, it's still attached to the injectors. Okay. All right, let me find my multimeter. It likes to hide around here. So, Casey, do you have a multimeter? The one I use is just I've got a bunch of them. I got a Fluke somewhere, but I rarely use it. The one that gets beat up on the most is a one from Harbor Freight. I'll try and walk outside. I'm sure that sanding's annoying some of you guys. I want to let them work though. Now I'm just pacing around looking for something. I have no idea where it's at. There it is, I think. Okay, he says I have two, but no idea how to use them. Okay, well, it's simple. Like I said earlier, the guys at the 928s were watching my video and they were like, did a great job on wiring that thing. I was like, yeah, it's not. Wiring is probably, I got a few mechanic friends and one of them told me, it's like, I'd rather do anything than wire. I'm like, that's the easiest part. Like, just give me all the wire. Yeah, I have no idea where it is. I saw my drill and I thought that was it. But it pops up every now and then, and we look for it. But that's the one I use most of the time. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay. I'm going to stop pacing because it doesn't like... sure you guys get tired of me just watching me pace around, but I know I got that thing somewhere. But So basically, I'll just have to show you without doing it, but it really helps if I could demonstrate it. I have no idea where it's at. It usually sits over here somewhere. He said, how much would it cost to ship the car from? Probably more than it's worth. There can't be anything wrong with the car. So it's cheaper to fly me out. I'll put it that way. No, we'll figure it out before we have to do any of that. I'll just drive to LA and then we'll get a cheap ticket to Hawaii, and then it's like and maybe an opening. We'll see about that tonight. John says same here. Wiring is my favorite. I had fun taking apart fuse box and cleaning it up like a way. Yeah, it's one of the easiest, the most fun parts of working on the car, I think. I'd rather do the wiring any day than half the other stuff. Oh well, I don't know where it would be. I usually just lay it here, and this is like a temporary place. I just come in the door and set it down, but I don't know what I've done with it now. Should have been there, but maybe we'll do a live, since you got a computer, maybe we can do like a live stream together next week. We'll do a split screen on it, and then I'll have my multimeter ready, and then we can kind of go through it. I can show you what all you need to do, check stuff. The only thing I don't like about wiring on these later cars is that on the fuse boxes, if somebody sticks a screwdriver down in there and spreads everything out, you cannot just simply get in there and tighten it back up. You got to take the whole fuse box apart just to get in there and put them back together so to hold the fuse again. You think the wiring is fun until you're battling a mystery machine with corrosion and broken stuff. Oh, that's when we just rip all that out. We just get apart the car and we start over again. It's just none of that. No, we're gonna start over with some new harnesses. Because I remember working on your car and I was like, no, we're just gonna do a whole new harness. It can be done, but it's not gonna be fun. So this is the car that I bought back in September, and I've done a few things to it. It's not happy. So I was told this was a running, driving car. And let me flip this around. Put new injectors in there, and then I get into this mess here. So what was this for? Probably, or who knows? Does it keep the car from running? I don't know what any of this does. So I just don't have time to go in there and figure out what's going on. Not scared of it. Don't bother me a bit. But that's more than I was really hoping. I was really hoping this car was going to be mostly original and I didn't have to get in all that. But unfortunately not. So 89 suspension overall on the way. Awesome. So you're gonna go with the conies as well? Again, I don't know that they're better. A lot of people like the Bilstein, and it's been years since I've driven them, but I just like everything to match and be tidy, you know. Yeah, always keep a spare. And if you're in there and you're replacing the whole harness on your car, go ahead and fuse the coil wire, that black wire that goes to the cool, fuse that thing. Especially if you own an early car, because the fuse, it's not fused, so if the you know how spark plugs get corrosion on top, they'll turn green, and the wires will too. If that happens, and the coil, the resistance will cause the coil to get really hot, and it will just melt that black wire all the way. It'll burn up the whole burn up the whole fuse box. Just take that out of the equation. I'm not saying you got to do that. If you stay on top of changing your spark plugs and your spark plug wires, and you make sure that you're putting silicone on the boots, don't put the silicone on the terminals themselves, but inside the boots to keep water out. And you're watching that at least once a year, you're not going to really have that problem. If it's been a few years or you don't check them every year, you can easily burn up your whole fuse box, and that is not going to be fun. I'd just rather put a fuse in there. As opposed to the 928s where they fused every single thing in them. They kind of were stingy even with the 944s.
I have a meeting I have to go to.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was nearly done with that. It's like 90%.
Perfect, man. All right, man. You have a good one. See you. All right, so he cleaned that up pretty good. I'll try and finish that for the end of the day. We're just making sure that heat shield looks good before we put the torque tube back in, because nothing worse than having a car that looks pristine and it has a rusty heat shield on it. So that's all I was sanding with. No, don't do that. All right, guys, if you don't have any more questions for me, go ahead and hop off here, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll try and do this again next week. Hopefully I have a little bit of different cars in here. Some of these are going home, and I'll take one more for we got, and then we'll sign off here. Don't forget about the Helen Meet, June 6th through 8th in Helen, Georgia. The website is my website, address.com/HelenMeet, or you can just Google Helen Meet, and it should be one of the first things that pops up. It'll be the Facebook page for it, but there'll be links to the website and the place to register if you can't find anything else. But Jeffrey says, can you recommend the Fuchs wheel restoration in the Charlotte or Shelby area? You do it in-house. As far as Fuchs, I can't think of the guy's name that does our wheels for us. I think it's Prince Tire. They're down towards, they're in Monroe or Indian Trail, somewhere around in there. Check them out. Those are the guys that usually restore our wheels. We used to restore them in-house, but it just got too much. We can't keep up with all the stuff to do anymore. So we send them out to them. But let's see. John Bo says, thanks again and have a good one. Well, I appreciate it, guys. And I'm going to get off here. Hope you have a great week. And we'll see you next Sunday at noon.